Hi, folks, here at Champion Sports Radio. We are really excited about the upcoming baseball season. We've got a lot of talented teams on tap. So, we want to sit down with each of the four play by play voices of the four teams we broadcast for and get you ready and prepared for what should be an exciting 2023 baseball broadcast season on Champion Sports Radio. Let's turn our attention now to the 5-6A team on Champion Sports Radio and CSR TV. We welcome in Jacob Dedamore, the voice of the Guyer Wildcats, team that is picked not only to win District 5-6A, but is also picked in the fourth spot in the region. And there are a lot of high expectations for this team, bringing back six starters from a team that had a pretty strong showing in the bi-district round of the playoffs 1 year ago. Jacob, what is Coach Watson most excited about going into this season, and what kind of a season should Guyer fans be ready for from this group that look to be loaded with talent?
Well, I think Coach Watson believes that his program is pretty healthy right now from a talent perspective. There's not much question about that. You know, when he told me the other day that the coaches picked them as the favorite to win the district, I was a little bit surprised, I'll be honest with you, because Guyer has lost so much from last season in their lineup. You know, they've lost 5 of their 9 starters in the field. They lost 3 of their top 4 run producers from an RBI standpoint, and that includes Jackson Arnold, who would have been a senior this year, but he graduated early to go up to Norman and join the Oklahoma football program as a quarterback recruit. So, you know, he lost a lot of not only experience but production out of his lineup. However, what he has returning is pitching, and that is probably why they're getting picked to be the favorites in the district, which will be a very competitive district because it has been a very competitive district ever since I've been covering them for Champion Sports Radio. I mean, Prosper year in and year out is a quality program. I would imagine right now they're 8-3 going into this afternoon. They're going to be good again. I think Little Elm is going to be pretty strong this year because they've been kind of an up-and-coming program with a lot of young talent that I think may be coming into its own this year. We'll see. But it's been a strong district year in, year out. Boyd was really good last year on the strength of their pitching. Boyd won the district last year, or got the top seed at least in the district, because their pitching was so strong last year. Their offense wasn't much to speak of, but they could pitch. And that's kind of where they're at. Now, the other thing Coach Watson does, which I personally love the thought process, he is a believer in iron sharpens iron. And so every year that I've covered them, his non-district schedule and tournament schedule is always very tough because he wants his guys to get ready for a very competitive district season. And so even with this team, you know, he's played a very tough district, non-district and tournament schedule against really good teams, including Hebron was their season opener earlier this year, and they got no hit, I believe it was, by Hebron in the season opener.
That was one of 3 no-hitters the Hebron pitching staff had that first weekend. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So they got no hit and lost 1-0. Then the next day they played one of the better teams in the state in Frisco Lone Star and got 1 hit by them and shut out 3-0. So he's got all these kids, you know, like I was talking about the talent level. The JV program last year for Guyer was very good. I think they went undefeated in district play, or they were very close to it. They were a very good JV program last year. And so it's not that they don't have talent. It's just a lot of experience. And those first 2 games against Hebron and Lone Star were kind of a rude awakening to a lot of his new kids to district that, hey, these guys throw a little bit harder. Their breaking stuff is a little bit better at the varsity level, and only getting 1 hit in their first 2 games was a pretty big wake-up call. But they've rebounded from it. The next day they took out Louisville 7-3. They've started scoring some runs. They're playing a tournament, kind of a Northwest ISD tournament, I guess you could call it, this weekend, which they won both games yesterday, beating Eaton and beating Granbury. they're going to be playing Northwest this weekend, as well as Brewer out of Fort Worth ISE. But the first 2 weekends of tournament were really tough, and so they've gotten their record up to 9-5. But this is going to be a team that, as the offense kind of tries to find its footing, is going to be going to need to be, at least early on, carried by their pitching. And unfortunately, the way the district schedule works out, they're going to have to start with Prosper next week. So it's going to be, again, kind of like their non-district schedule. It's going to be kind of a jump in with both feet kind of thing.
Is there even an off week in 5-6A? It's unbelievable how packed the talent it is, top to bottom. Even we saw this last year as the district was coming down the line. Even the team, quote unquote, in last place still had a chance to knock off the number one team. And it's a very, very balanced district that is going to produce a lot of really close games.
If you're asking if there's off weeks, I don't know if you could, according to Coach Watson, you could ever approach it that way. But Rock Hill in Prosper ISD, this is their first year playing varsity 6A as they're a new team to the district. So this level of competition is probably going to be real new for that program at Rock Hill. And McKinney High was down last year. They're kind of off to a rough start this year. So those might be kind of the breaks, but the breaks in the schedule, if you want to call it that. But everywhere else, as you said, this is going to be a competitive and balanced district all the way through. And that was the same thing we saw last year. And, the one difference, and I kind of prefer this, I'm wondering if Coach Watson likes it, it's an 8-team district now as opposed to a 7-team district. So you're not having to find, there's no quote unquote bye week, which is good in one respect, where the standpoint of you're not having to find somebody to play, to fill in that week. But at the same time, you also don't have as many games, maybe to try and get some other guys work. There's only a lot of times Guyer would have some Saturday games. They still have a few on the schedule this year, but there's only 3 Saturday games, I think, throughout their district schedule the rest of the way. And, they're playing on the road at Salina. They're playing a home Saturday game against, I don't have the schedule right in front of me right now. I'm sorry.
Argyle's on there when you know how tough
Argyle's on there, and that's at Argyle. And Argyle's good, pretty much every year, even though they're at the 5A level right now. And I think they have one against somebody else that's I think Grapevine, maybe something like that. But regardless, there's not going to be quite as many games, and there's not going to be a bye week this year in district play. So there's positives and negatives to that. But I do think that, if this lineup, these new kids that are being brought up to varsity this year and are going to be playing, if they can kind of find their footing, especially offensively early, then Guyer's going to be good because they have the pitching staff to do it. Brad Pruitt, who was one of the best pitchers in the district last year, is back. He is decommitted from Texas State and is now committed to Oklahoma. And Brad is going to be an everyday lineup guy, and they're going to need him to hit. He really struggled in district play last year with the bat, and to the point where, they started taking him out of the lineup towards the end of the season on days that he didn't pitch. But on days he doesn't pitch, he's going to play third base for this team, and they need him to hit. But he has been excellent on the mound this year. Last year, Jack Hickerson, who was a sophomore, is back as a junior this year. He's going to be the other starter. So they've basically got their 2 weekday starters back from last year. And that's going to be kind of the key. They're going to have to kind of work out some bullpen stuff because they lost Cam Sala, who was a senior, who also got hurt, unfortunately, last year towards the end of the season. But Cam was kind of their go-to guy in the bullpen as the closer. So they're going to have to figure out that role as well. But it's not that they don't have talent. It's just more of a matter of getting the guys in the lineup and in the field that haven't had the experience to get them going once district play starts.
And as you mentioned earlier, starts with a bang with one of the other best teams in the district at Prosper. No chance to get your feet wet at all. So should be a lot of fun this season. Jacob, looking forward to you being on the mic for all these Guyer Wildcat games again on Champion Sports Radio.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I've had a lot of fun covering Coach Watson and their program. He's a good guy to talk to, and he shares the information. His teams are fun to watch.
And nobody is more blunt and direct than Coach Watson.
No.
Never sugarcoats it. So,
No,
all
he
right,
doesn't.
Jacob, have a great season on the call. We're looking forward to some great things.
All right. Thanks, Thomas.